Okay, hello. If you're new here, thank you for being here. If you're not new here, welcome back. I appreciate you. So I want to talk about something that might put me out there a little bit. I don't know. But just in case somebody else is going through a similar situation, I want to put some wisdom out there because gosh golly. Okay, so one thing for sure about this situation, about this relationship, my intuition went off a lot during it. There were a lot of moments where I was like, if I look back at my journal, because I have a journal, I've been journaling the last couple of years. When I look back at my journal, it's pretty obvious to me that I was being called to say deuces, but I was just no, because it doesn't make sense. And that's one thing about it when it comes to your intuition. You really gotta take it seriously. There's no such thing as oh, I'm overreacting, or oh, it doesn't make sense. No, when your intuition tells you to do something, bro, you should take heed. For real, the mind is a tricky thing. The mind confirmation bias is terrible. If you want to believe something, you will see evidence for it. And I so badly wanted to believe that he was a good person. I so badly wanted to believe that he was who he said he was, but he was not. One thing about this relationship, though, if I had to give credit, because, gratitude, is that this person really did help me to see my value in a way that other people had not before, in the sense that anything I wanted, for the most part, was provided for me. Within this relationship, within this connection, if I asked for something and he had the means to get it, I could get it, and I really did appreciate that. I don't want to belittle that aspect of it, because that was a huge thing for me, on my own personal development. But the thing about it, from my perspective at least, is that this person was very envious, very jealous. And like I've said before, in many videos before, if there's any amount of unchecked envy, unchecked jealousy in a relationship, that relationship is doomed, I swear to God. Specifically, I'm going to clarify unchecked, because jealousy and envy are normal human emotions, just like anger is a normal human emotion. Sometimes you get angry, and that's not inherently bad, but when it's unchecked, when you're not able to be responsible for that feeling, that's when it becomes a negative, you know what I mean? You could disagree with me all you want, that's fine. I like to encourage free thought, but if you're someone that claims to be intuitive, if you're someone that claims to be in tune and in alignment, you have to be very careful about who you allow into your inner circle, because some people are really good at pretending. Some people are really good at deceiving and deception. And looking back, I realized that this person was really good at those things. And once again, I hate that I have to look at it like that, but it is what it is, you know what I mean? As much as I wanted things to work out, as much as I wanted things to be kosher between us, I just don't think it was possible. One thing that I heard that really stuck with me a few weeks before I ended things with this person was the idea that God makes it possible for harmony between any two humans, right? And so as long as both parties are willing to put in the work, there can be harmony. But if one party, if even one of those people is not really seeking harmony, then it won't work. And at some point, I had to really realize that. I had to recognize that, because he would constantly run away from conflict. He would constantly invalidate my feelings. And whether or not he was consciously doing it, I do believe that he was consciously doing it, but whether or not he was consciously doing it, the effects were still there. And this is something I've told people, in readings, in personal readings before, it doesn't actually matter sometimes if they give a fuck about you. What matters is the impact. If they're saying, I love you, I care about you, but their actions are showing otherwise, then at the end of the day, if you care about yourself, if you respect yourself, it doesn't fucking matter what they're saying to you, because their actions are still doing the opposite. You know what I mean? Because this person would tell me that he wanted a serious relationship. He wanted to develop a relationship with me. But once again, he would constantly run away from conflict. He would constantly, like, take the chance to, like, devalue me and belittle me. And I had to go within and be like, okay, I don't like what's going on in this. I don't like how this is moving forward. And so I had to distance myself. Well, I didn't have to, but I chose to, because it was just too painful and too distracting not to. I'm going to talk for like 2.5 seconds about like the chosen one, that archetype. Like, when you're special, when you have a higher calling on your life, like, you really got to be careful dealing with certain energies, because once again, whether consciously or not, it doesn't really matter what their actual conscious intention is, because what they're doing is more important. But like, when you have like a big calling in your life, you'll have people who will seemingly try to throw you off and distract you. And if you allow it, it'll happen. You know what I mean? And I think one of the ways that this relationship started crumbling was that I started realizing just how much of myself I was giving to him, just how much I was allowing him to siphon from me. And when I realized that, I started like withdrawing, I started distancing myself, I started, purposely, mindfully talking to him a lot less. Not out of vindication, not out of revenge, not out of like spite, but just because I realized how much I was allowing him to distract me. And once I started doing that, I got a lot more creative. I got a lot more, like, downloads. I felt a lot more connected. And it was in that moment I was like, fuck, I gotta let this bitch go. And I'd say the last night that we talked, I said a lot of really harsh things. And I don't necessarily regret what I said for the sake of regretting what I said. I regret what I said because it's not necessarily in my character, not because I don't believe in what I said, because I called him a loser. That was one of the things I said. And I definitely, like, looking back on the relationship, looking back on our dynamic, I definitely believe that. Like, I'm not backpedaling. I'm not saying that I was wrong in saying that. The only reason why I would feel wrong about that is because that's a really harsh thing to say to someone that you love, But I don't know. I was just done. I was just at a breaking point, because I just kept noticing certain patterns within him, and he didn't have the capacity to like own up to it. It's like, if you're going to throw stones, but like, don't fucking hide your hands and then like act innocent when I like call you out on it. Like, bitch, no, own up to it, But he didn't have the capacity to do that. So, yeah. I'm not going to sit here and claim to know what was going on in this dude's head, but what I will say is that a lot of people delude themselves, a lot of people like lie to themselves about who they are, or like how they show up in the world, in the sense that most people want to believe that they're like the good guy, most people want to believe that they're the hero, right? And so they'll try to ignore everything negative within them, because that doesn't fit the character I want to play. But it's like, why are you playing character? Just fucking be yourself, you know what I mean? I don't like personally I don't want to have to believe that this person is a quote-unquote narcissist or had malicious intentions or whatever. But like, once again, looking back at it from like an objective standpoint, that's kind of what it seems like, He didn't seem to understand how to reciprocate what I was giving to him. Like, he would take any opportunity to like, once again, devalue me and make me feel like smaller in a way. And I feel like in little bits, like all of what was happening separately isn't that big of a deal, but when you add it all up, it's like, oh wow, that's a big math problem right there, you know? One of the reasons why I kept him in my life is because of guilt, because he paid for a lot of things. He, you know, made sure that I had a lot of necessities when I needed it. Like this phone that I'm recording on was a gift from him, and that was one of the reasons why I kept talking to him. It was like right before Thanksgiving, I think, or right before Christmas, I don't know. And I was already thinking it over in my head. I was like, I should just end this relationship. I should just dead this shit. And then he brought it up. He was like, oh yeah, I'm getting you a phone. And then so I was like, whoa, I need a phone, because I've been needing a phone for like months. Like at the time, I had like a really janky hand-me-down iPhone, and I couldn't really I couldn't really make content like I wanted to. And so I had been telling him I needed a new phone. I was like wanting to save up for a new phone, but you know. And so he got me a new phone, and I was like feeling guilty. I was like, fuck, got me a new phone. Like this shit, you know? But like one piece of advice, it doesn't matter what the price tag is. It doesn't matter, like, you know, it doesn't matter. You know, if someone is devaluing you, if someone is like bad for your mental health, they're bad for your mental health. Like just point blank period. And I don't regret the way that things went. I don't wish it happened differently. But if anything, I'm thankful for the situation, because now I have the foresight, the awareness to know better. You know, hopefully I don't have to go through this again. And I don't know, hopefully you don't either, because there's a lot of people who are very deceiving and very good at being deceptive. I don't know. Do I hold any ill will against this person? Do I, like, look at them in a negative light because of, like, who I discovered them to be? Not really, because I understand that it's just their trauma. I understand it's just their wounding. You know, that doesn't necessarily justify their behaviors, but I can understand it, and I can definitely put an understanding to it, you know what I mean? And I used the word narcissist a little bit ago, and if I were to go back towards that terminology, like, it was very clear. Like, he only ever really talked about himself, and if I was talking about myself, it wasn't any sort of expansion upon that. It wasn't any sort of inquiry about that. It was just like, okay, whatever. And you know the crazy thing to me, if you call yourself an intelligent person, if you call yourself a smart person, if I call you out on something and then you keep doing it, that doesn't seem intelligent to me at all, because it's like, what? You're very sloppy. Like, what? Because I called it out. I was like, you're very selfish. Like, you don't ever... And maybe that was a mistake on my end. They always say you're not really supposed to do that. You're not supposed to call the behavior out. But I did, and I'm glad that I did, because it helped me to get to, like, see him more clearly, you know? I find it a little bit funny, a little bit interesting, that this person saw himself in such a, like, positive light, that they thought that they were different from other people. Because, okay, a little bit of a timeline. When I knew this person, when I first met this person, I was actually homeless. Like, I was living at a shelter, and he worked at the shelter. Long story short, he ended up getting fired from that place. And that was like a whole journey for him, but yeah, I was homeless, and like, that was part of our dynamic, that he was like, you know, giving me money and like helping me out in different ways. But I actually lost my train of thought, and because I'm a lazy editor, I'm not going to end this video. I'm just gonna keep rolling. But one thing I didn't necessarily say before, I feel like sometimes I get on a roll and I forget to say certain things, but one of the things I wanted to say is that, like, I noticed one of the traits within him, why I inevitably stopped talking to him was that I noticed he didn't clap for me. I noticed he didn't necessarily like applaud for me when it was like necessary. Again, looking back, I really do believe that he found enjoyment in like my low moments, because I found myself like complaining and venting to him a lot when I was homeless, and I think he enjoyed that. I think he really did, because he would ask me questions, he would like inquire, and he would like try to understand more. But when it came to positive things, that was never a thing. He never like, he never showed genuine like I'm happy for you. Like one of the things that I finally did in our connection was I published one of the books that I was working on. I've been working on it for like months by the time that I published it, and we had an agreement, like a monetary agreement, where he would like save my money for me, because I'm not that good at saving money. Like, just to be very transparent, I'm not like, and so he was doing that for me, but it just didn't seem like he genuinely wanted to help me. Like, he was just doing it just to do it. Like, he never offered any words of encouragement. He never tried to be like, encouraging towards me or anything like that. He would say that he would claim that he was, but then obviously the action was never there. So it was like, okay, what are we doing? Once again, I don't necessarily like blame him. I don't necessarily blame anyone. I feel like blame is kind of a pointless pursuit. But what I will say is that he did not like taking accountability. And I don't know, I feel like it's very possible to have a relationship with someone where your values don't align. But at the same time, when you're conscious of energy, when you're conscious of like how things flow and everything, you really got to be careful with that shit. Because I started noticing little things about him, and I tried to let it slide. I tried to like maneuver around it, because I knew that he was such a provider. I knew that he was like, down for me, at least in the way of like providing things. But it just became too much to handle at a certain point, because it was just like I don't know, like, I remember the last night we talked, it was over text, because he was also a bitch. Like, that was one of the things I said to him. I was like, you're a coward. You're a fucking scaredy cat. A bitch who's afraid of his own shadow. And like, once again, the things I said was pretty harsh. And I like, in the sense that like, it goes against my character. I wish I didn't say that. But that doesn't mean that I didn't think it was true. I definitely believed in what I was saying. Like, he's definitely a fucking loser. He's definitely a fucking jealous, hater-ass loser. I lost my train of thought. One of the things I said to him the last time that we talked was, because I was just so mad. And I'm sorry, I was calling him a bitch because I was saying that it was over text versus call, because whenever we were having a disagreement, whenever we were having a conflict, he was such a pussy that he did not want to be on the phone. Like, he would rather just text about it, because he knew that, like, if I could use my voice in the situation, I would fucking win. But I will also take a moment and pause and say that conflicts, disagreements, and arguments are not about winning. Like, that is never my mindset. That was never my mindset. But I do believe that that's what he was thinking whenever we got into an argument. He was always like, I need to win this. I want to win this. And I'm like, bro, that's why we're not working out, because you're constantly in competition, constantly trying to win something. Like, how about you crack open a book and try to learn? You know what I mean? But back to what I was saying. One of the things that I said to him was like I was so angry at some point, and I had to recalibrate myself, and I had to like start, well, I didn't have to, but I wanted to start like navigating from the point of love, because I was very angry. And when I get angry, sometimes I say things not thinking about like my care for the person or my respect for the person. And so I put that on the forefront. I was like, I love you, you're a cunt, and I'm sorry, I love you. And he didn't say it back to me, And I even gave him an opportunity to like reflect it back to me. I was like, oh, so you don't love me back? Fuck you. And his response, like I'm not quoting verbatim, but his response was like, people don't, okay, what did he say? Something along the lines of like, people who loves, or I don't even want to say this, but he was like, people who love people don't say the things that they said, or don't say the things that you said this morning. That was his fucking response to me asking him if he loved me. And I've seen moments like that before in a relationship. So this wasn't new, but it was like in that moment where I was just like, okay, yeah, this is done. Because obviously this is not a mutual reciprocated loving relationship. You know what I mean? Sometimes I would ask him very clear questions, very clear and direct questions. And he would like skirt around it and try not to give a solid answer. And I don't know, like I noticed that before. It's not like it was something new, but it was just like, I feel like I had let it slide so many times because I wanted to believe what he said about himself. I wanted to believe how he portrayed himself to be, because one of the things he said to me, one of the things this bitch said to me was that he was an empath. And I don't remember exactly why he said that, but he said that. And he wasn't the first person that I had witnessed that with. Like, I've had other people say that to me, and then it turns out, if anything, they're a dark empath. And if you've been with me for any time, you know I don't really love using the term empath seriously, because there are a lot of people who use that term and like use it nefariously, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying that he used it nefariously, but at the least I will say that for someone to claim that they're an empath, he definitely showed low signs of emotional intelligence. Like, for certain. Once again, I feel like I get so excited, I get so ramped up, I forget to say certain things, or like I gloss over certain things. One of the things I was going to say was that while we were talking, I was also staying, like originally when we first met, I was at a homeless shelter. That's how we met, right? And I feel like people have this weird thing where like, if they meet you at a certain point, it's hard for them to see you beyond that. Case in point, like with this, like he met me as a homeless person. So when I started showing him more layers to me, when I started showing him how dedicated I was, how like motivated, how ambitious I was, it was kind of like hard for him to really conceptualize that, because he met me as a homeless person. He met me in a certain state, and he wanted me to kind of stay in that state, whether consciously or unconsciously. Once again, because a lot of times we talk about psychic attack, and it's like, it's usually not a conscious effort. Sometimes it is, but usually it's not. But back to the sugar daddy. I packed up and I left. That was a very tumultuous situation, and he was there. He was physically there. This bitch was not present. And once again, I'm not blaming him, not holding it against him, but that was one of the things where I like had to examine in my head after the fact, and I was like, this dude don't got my back. Cause I talked about this situation before in a video. I said my piece, I said my truth to my sugar daddy, and then I said deuces. But within all of that, there was a lot of like arguing and projecting and like blame shifting and guilt tripping and a lot of negativity directed at me. Like, this was a situation I feel like I held my own, but there was a lot of negativity thrown at me. And he was just kind of sitting there. He like stood there, like not saying a gosh darn thing. And then when I did turn to him for like some sort of comfort, he didn't know what to do. You know, he was like smoking a cigar. He was just standing there, like just observing everything. And I was like, what the fuck? And then after the fact, he didn't even really offer any sort of like solace or comfort. You know what I mean? That was another thing. There was like so many little things. Once again, when I added it all up, I was like, okay, yeah, this is shit. Like, there were so many little things that added up and compounded into like, this is not a good relationship for you. One thing that I talked about previously was that this person was not necessarily who they portrayed themselves to be. And I feel like a lot of the times when it comes to people like that, they tend to develop a sort of jealousy towards people who actually are the way that they show up. Because the thing about it, if I were to talk details about this relationship, about this person, they're a church person. They go to church every Sunday, and I think Wednesday, I don't fucking know. And so on the surface level, that's their excuse for like for anything that says like they're a bad person. Their excuse is, I go to church, I'm not a bad person. Like that could be their excuse. I'm not saying that's a valid excuse, but that is the thing about them, right? And they were also working in a homeless shelter, and they were a very active community, like within their job, praying for people, servicing people, helping people. And it just seemed like that wasn't necessarily something they actually wanted to do. Like when I asked them questions about it, it really just seemed like it was just a job that they stumbled into and they found enjoyment in, I guess. But I don't know, like, because I would ask certain questions, because I'm a lover. I like to ask questions. I'm a Gemini. I like to ask questions. I like to understand my lover. And so I'm asking you questions. I'm trying to understand. And the more I understood, the more I was like, okay, all right, there's a facade here. This isn't real. I think the tricky thing about having intuition and like just knowing certain things is towing the line between, reading someone and then like projecting. Like when I do readings for people, when I give readings to people, I always try to like provide the space for like self-empowerment, if that makes sense. Like if I read something that looks a certain way, I'll be like, this is how I see it, this is what I feel, this is the energy that I'm tapped into, but obviously you should know your life better than I do. And I think I did that too many times within a relationship. Like I would offer the space to be like, here's what I'm feeling, here's what I'm thinking, but obviously you should know yourself better than I do. And I think he would hate that and he would run with it. Because sometimes I would say things about him, or I would call him out on certain things, and I would be like, that's just what I feel. Like, I'm not calling you a liar, I'm not calling you X, Y, and Z. This is just how I see it. And then he would be like, well, I think you're wrong. I think your intuition's wrong. And one thing that I read while I was scrolling on Twitter the other day was that a healthy, loving relationship will have you question yourself, will have you challenge yourself, but in healthy ways. It won't have you invalidating your intuition. It won't have you doubting yourself. And that was the thing, like, because I shared a lot with him. Like, I really wanted to believe that we could be like something long term. But every time I shared with him, I always got burned. I either left with a lot of self-doubt, I would just, I don't know, like, it just wasn't right. We were not aligned in that way. Like, I would share so many things with him, so many plans, so many ideas, and then he would shoot them down one way or another. Like, I told him one specific plan that I had been thinking about for at least like a year, I think. And I told him about it, and his response was really shitty advice. Like, when I think back on it, I'm like, that was shitty advice. He basically told me that I should wait until it gets warmer, because right now it's snowing. There's snow everywhere, which is actually an anomaly, because also, as I'm recording, it also has been recorded to be snowing in Florida, which is wild. But regardless, he suggested that I wait until it gets warmer to like pursue the plan. And I don't know, because like, the more I think about it, the more I think back on it, it's just crazy how much I overlooked certain things, because he would claim so much up and down that he cared about me and he wanted the best for me and he wanted X, Y, and Z. But then I would literally have to beg him just to show interest. You know what I mean? And it's like, I don't know, from my point of view, my perspective, and the same thing with the sugar daddy situation, it's like you're putting all this money into somebody, but then you're neglecting them in other aspects. And I don't know what you think you're going to get out of a situation like that thankfully I was strong-willed enough. Thankfully I had the mental capacity to like not let that shit, you know, bury me into the fucking ground. But like, what do you think is gonna happen? Like, that doesn't make any fucking sense to me. Like, because like it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, unless they were solely just getting off on the idea that they were like ruining my life, unless that was all that it was, that I could understand that. But like, otherwise, if you genuinely care about someone, if you genuinely want the best for someone, and you're like feeding a bunch of money into them, my logical understanding is that you would also like speak life into them. And that was never a thing. Like, they never encouraged me. They never tried to like speak life into me. It was always death. It was always doubt and pessimism and fear and all this stupid shit. And I'm thinking of the story of Tangled. You know how she kind of had her daughter, or she wasn't her daughter. She had the baby that she stole locked up in the tower, feeding her all these lies, you know, not wanting her to feel empowered about herself, etc., so that she could siphon off her energy. And for a lot of people, that's kind of what it is. It's just like, they just want your energy. They just want the feel good that comes with being attached to you. You know what I mean? I feel like I've said a lot in this video, but one thing I'm gonna leave you with is like, you really gotta take people's actions more seriously than their words. Like, it doesn't matter how many I love yous, I care about yous somebody gives you. If their actions are not showing that, it doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't matter at all. It's not always that these people are malicious or these people are nefarious. Sometimes it's just that they're stupid. Oh my God, there was a video on TikTok that I saw, I think yesterday. And like, I don't like going around calling people stupid. That's not my MO. But I really vibe with the sentiment of like, we give people too much credit sometimes. Like, we like to appoint malicious intention and like, you know, conscious negativity to situations where literally it's just a lack of emotional intelligence. It's just a lack of intelligence, you know? And like, I don't know. I can't say for sure, because there are people like that who exist. People who get off on like causing suffering. There are people who get off on the pain of others. And psychologically, it's a thing. It's not necessarily, you don't judge a shark for being a shark. You don't judge a wolf for being a wolf. It just is what it is. But you got to be careful. Like, you just got to be careful, because not everybody is who they appear to be. And you will get fucking caught up trying to like mingle and entangle yourself with certain people. Like, just point blank period. You just got to be careful, you know? So ultimately, keep doing what you're doing, keep shining, keep creating, keep loving yourself, and stay hydrated. Bye.